Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene said she and Speaker Mike Johnson failed to come to an agreement Wednesday about a series of policy issues at the center of her threat to oust him from the speakership. The Wednesday meeting marked the first time the two Republicans have spoken since Greene filed a motion to vacate the speakership last month, after Johnson helped pass a spending package to avert a partial government shutdown. We didn't walk out with the deal. I explained to him that, and he acknowledged that as a Republican member of the House, I pretty much have the best view of how the base feels and what Republican voters want, Greene told reporters outside of Johnson's office. Greene has recently ramped up pressure against Johnson over his handling of government funding, his pledge to bring Ukraine aid to the floor, and the reauthorization of the U.S. warrantless surveillance programs as contained in Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, FISA. Shortly after the meeting, a rule for legislation to renew Section 702 failed after 19 Republicans joined Democrats in voting against it. The chamber is now left without a clear path to address the spy tool before its expiration next week. Greene in the meeting reiterated her call for Johnson to halt U.S. funding for Ukraine. She said Wednesday, "We are not responsible for a war in Ukraine. We're responsible for the war on the United States border. The United States border is the only border that matters," she said, "and that if he moves forward in funding Ukraine, that he's going to be personally responsible for funding the continued murder of people in a foreign country that is not a NATO ally of ours." She said Johnson did not provide an answer on how he plans to move forward with Ukraine. He indicated last week he would bring aid to the floor after the House returned from its latest recess, though he didn't say what form the bill would take. The Georgia lawmaker said the two also discussed last month's spending package. He funded the Biden administration. He funded their open border policies, she said. "This is not going to be tolerated by Republicans, and it's not the way to win elections. Our Republican voters do not want to vote for a Democrat agenda." Jesus. Where do we begin? Well, I guess we can start with the insanity of getting a new speaker after you didn't like the other one, and then threatening to get rid of that person who, if you end up getting rid of him, it's just going to start another several weeks or months of having an inability to get anything done, which is, I guess, that's like the bread and butter of being in the House at this point, just sitting around and making TV appearances and putting out press statements, but not actually, bettering anyone's life. To go through some of her proposals, I am theoretically on her side as far as I believe that there should be discussions about how much aid do we really have to give Ukraine. We talk all this big stuff about, things in the U.S. cost too much. These domestic programs are so expensive. We need to sunset Medicare and Medicaid. But then at the same time, we're able to always find money for these foreign countries and foreign conflicts. That is a problem I do have with Johnson. But it's, again, that's not exclusive to him. That's something that you could say about McCarthy, and I'm sure you'd probably be able to say about any other Republican that has a realistic chance of becoming speaker if Greene gets her way and is able to replace him. As far as the United States border being the only border that matters, we already talked before. There's plenty of illegal immigrants who come to the U.S. with visas that they overstay, and then the narrative is, just this giant invasion. No, if you actually reform the system, there's plenty of more things to do other than fearmonger about, they're crossing the border. It's stupid. I just don't know what else to say. She says he funded the Biden administration. He funded their open border policies, not going to be tolerated. Johnson is not anyone I would consider someone I'd want for speaker. But then again, I think like all of the Republicans would fit under that bill besides maybe Thomas Massey. But regardless of that, I'm sympathetic to him in the sense that you become speaker as like this compromise candidate, right? This person who wasn't intended to get this job after they throw out McCarthy. Then you're trying to like play ball, because Johnson makes a lot of sense when you think about it this way. He knows his own party is not loyal to him. The only person they're loyal to is Trump. And he wants to make sure that if they try to do something to him, like what they did to McCarthy, there will be a few Democrats, not a bunch, but a few, who will support him in retaining another term. Really, at this point, it just seems like all Greene wants is chaos, where the whole thing about Congress is you're supposed to compromise and work with people, whether it's members of your own party across the aisle, etc., to get things that maybe they're not entirely what you want, but closer to what you envision them to be. And Johnson seems to have been doing that, but because Greene is like this just chaos worshiping character, she thinks that's not enough, and he needs to have this like obstructionist stance. She basically wants him to be like McConnell in the Senate, but of course the big difference is that McConnell is someone who's been Republican leader for, geez, what, 15 years? So there's no concern on McConnell's part of like, yeah, if I'll block this, if I'll work with the Democrats on that, and usually he doesn't do the latter. You know, he doesn't have to worry about uh, having his own party kick him out the door. Whereas with Johnson, he's a lot more fragile, and he's very concerned about his future. Which again, it's not hard to understand his perspective, and also it just shows you the just the insanity of Greene. Like, yay, we succeeded in getting rid of McCarthy. Time to get rid of his replacement too. Like, I'm telling you, they for as much as people talk about the do nothing Congress, they want it to be that way. They want to have no speaker, so they can all just sit there each day in their chairs, posting clips of themselves on social media, doing interviews on these different networks as if they're really changing something. It's sad that this is one of the most prominent American lawmakers right now is this lady that uses her profile, if you can call it that, to get rid of the leaders of her political party, and as a result tie up the hands of Congress so it can't actually do anything to benefit the people, all under the guise of her supposedly seeking to drain the swamp.